Rating the 2024 Super Motocross riders from worst to best, the 250 edition. This is on a scale from 1 to 10, and I'm taking into account if they're a rookie, what they did in Supercross, Motocross, SMX, if they got hurt. I'm taking into account of everything. I'm not going to do every single person in the 250 class because that would take absolutely forever. I picked the riders that I expected to be like a top 15 guy. Let's start us off with the first person, aka the worst rider. This is Dax Bennett. It is his rookie year, so take into consideration for that. But I am giving him a 2 out of 10. I expected better things from Dax. He did pretty good in Supercross. He got a 3rd place at the opener in Detroit. That is the one where everybody crashed in the beginning. But then he kind of struggled through the middle of the season. I just kind of expected more, him being on Star Racing to get into that, like 7, 8 every single weekend. But that didn't honestly happen. And then for Motocross, man, I don't think we ever saw Dax Bennett one time. He started out at Paula with the 20th. It was a struggle bus for Dax. It was very, very bad. He also missed the last round at Ironman. There was rumors that he got benched. I don't know if that was necessarily true. I think it was more of like a sickness that he had. And then SMX, he didn't even race due to that. That's why I'm going to put Dax as the worst. I expect Dax to do better next year, though. I think he just had an off year, maybe just too much happening all at once. But I expect better things for him, whatever coast he races next year in Supercross and Motocross, because we saw it. We saw those glimpses that he can do exceptionally well, and I'm just hoping that he figures it out and he comes back swinging next year. And so the next rider I have on the list is Cameron Magoo, and I'm giving him a 3 out of 10. Cameron Magoo is a championship contender, and we saw that in Supercross. He reeled off 3 consecutive second places. He got a first place in there, another second, and then when he had to race with Levi Kitchen, he crashed both of them, and he was out for the remainder of the Supercross season. And then as well as Motocross, he didn't even participate in the Motocross season because of the injuries. But he came back for SMX. He did really good at the SMX rounds. He had to come from the LCQ, consistently got 8th, and then he got 12th at the last round in Vegas. But I put him as a 3 because he's a championship contender. Before he crashed out in Supercross, he was battling with the likes of Deegan, with the likes of Tommy V for that championship. And we expected that from him, but we also expect him to be healthy enough to race that outdoor season. All right. And that's why I kind of dropped him down pretty low, is because we expect him to come out and try to go for that championship, and that just didn't happen. He's plagued with injuries throughout the last few years. I'm hoping that next year they figure something out and he comes back swinging. He battles for that championship in Supercross. He battles for the championship in Motocross, and he rides really good in the SMX. So I'm hoping for that, but yeah, that's why I put him down really low, because he's a championship contender and he wasn't there for the championships, if that kind of makes sense. The next guy that I have on the list is Ryder Francisco, and I gave him a 4 out of 10. So he really struggled in Supercross. He got 12th overall in Supercross. He got 10th overall in Motocross. And then for the SMX, he got 12th overall as well. And he just kind of struggled all year on the gas. I don't know if it was his program. We saw a glimpse of like really good riding towards like the end of the Motocross season. I heard a rumor that he went back to the Baker's factory. So I don't know if that maybe played a factor, but we saw those glimpses of Ryder D like riding really, really good. And I expect him next year, whatever team that, like the Gas TLD, whatever bike they're going to be on, I expect him to do extremely well. So the next rider is RJ Hampshire, and I also gave him a 4 out of 10. And now, yes, he did win a Supercross championship in the West Coast with the likes of Levi in there, Joe in there, Thrasher, Jordan Smith. He did win that championship, and he rode really good all year. He had 3 different wins. He had a bunch of different podiums. But the one thing that plagued him, and what makes me put him pretty low on the ratings, is he didn't do outdoors. He's a championship contender. He got hurt. I totally get that. He hurt his wrist, and it honestly wasn't even his fault that he hurt his wrist. If you guys remember correctly, he crashed on press day at Paula because the flagger didn't flag, and I believe it was actually Garrett Marchbanks that went down and RJ crashed into him and hurt his wrist. So you gotta kind of take that into account. He missed the whole season basically. He did race a few rounds at the very end, and he went 9, 8, 4, 3, which you saw that potential at the very end. He went 4-3. Like, he's obviously a championship contender. That's why I have him pretty low. If he's consistent and he just stays alive and doesn't crash, man, he's probably at a 6 or 7 for me. But those injuries are plaguing him just as much as the likes of Cameron McAdoo, you know? So that's why I kind of have him down there. Now, the next rider that I have on the list is Chancehus, and I gave him a 4 out of 10 rating. He finished 8th in Supercross in the 250 East Coast, and then he finished 4th in Motocross and didn't race the SMX. This is technically his second year, maybe his first year. I don't really know how you would determine this because he raced 4 East Coast rounds last year, and then he raced 4 motocross rounds last year. So he kind of did like a half a year last year, and this year was his first full year. I don't know how you would want to like determine that. Is that technically a rookie? I really don't know. If you guys can say that's a rookie, this is his rookie year, then he did pretty good. 8th in Supercross, 4th in Motocross. He has a lot of work to do in Supercross, man. I'm looking at these results from last year, and they're not that good. All right, 10, 15, 10, 12. He had a couple fifth, 7s in there, but I always say this, he's not a Supercross guy. He's more of a motocross guy, which we saw that this year in motocross where he was battling Deegan, winning motos. Like, we saw what he's capable in pro motocross. If he can kind of translate that to Supercross, hey, he might be a championship contender. As of right now, I don't have him as a Supercross championship contender. Motocross is another story. Maybe SMX next year is another story. But he is also a guy that is plagued with injuries. He's had multiple ACL injuries. He re-aggravated the one at SMX, I think round 1, and that's why he didn't race. And now he's out for Motocross Nations. So that's why I kind of have him pretty low. He's not a Supercross guy. He finished 8th overall. He did really good in Motocross, but crashed a bunch, and then didn't even race SMX. So kind of similar to like the other guys where like you expect him to do good, but he just kind of struggled in different areas. But I have really good, like, high hopes for Chance. I think he's going to come out next year swinging. He's going to recover from that ACL and hopefully he doesn't re-injure it again because that would suck. But I have high hopes for him next year. And the next rider that I have on the list is Joe Schmoda, and I have him as a 5 out of 10. He finished 4th in Supercross, 6th in Motocross, and 5th overall in SMX. And I have him kind of low, although he did majority of all the races this year. Because he's a championship contender. I expect him to be battling for that championship and not getting 4th, not getting a 6th in motocross or a 5th in SMX. I know he was kind of hurt during SMX and the end of motocross, but this happens every single year, guys. Joe just super slow to start and then picks it up at the very end. And we kind of saw that in Supercross, but I will say this, that for Supercross, he had one round where he finished dead last, and that was at San Francisco, which was that mutter, and his bike basically like blew up, and he couldn't do anything about it. He didn't crash or anything like that. He was actually riding pretty good in that mud race, and if he didn't have that 22nd, man, and if he just finished like a 4th or a 5th, like anything could have been possible for that championship because he only finished 26 points down, and that's a huge points difference from 22nd to 4th because I'm looking at the other results, and he was probably the most consistent rider out of every single person like on this list. I mean, he had back-to-back 4ths, back-to-back 3rds, back-to-back 2nds, got a win, and then finished 4th at Salt Lake. Like, he doesn't have that 22nd. He's probably battling for that championship. That's the thing that like plagues him a little bit, is like those weird scenarios where sometimes sometimes he starts slow and then he finishes strong. Sometimes he has a bike malfunction. Like we saw it last year on PC where like he was faster than the guy in that heat race and just like trying to scrub too hard, crash, got taken out. He was a championship contender then. And then for motocross, he started off slow once again and then start picking it up towards the end. I mean, as a fan of Joe, I hate seeing like these slow starts because like as a championship contender, you shouldn't be starting like 8th and 6th at Paula, man. Like you got to be like 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, you know? He also had a couple motos in there where he finished 9th. You just can't have that. He obviously had a bad moto at Spring Creek, and then as well as Unadilla when he broke his collarbone. It just kind of sucks to see, man, because Joe is definitely a championship contender, but he's got to figure out the starts of the series, because he's got to pick that up for next year and the future years if he wants to actually battle. And then for SMX, honestly, he rode great with like that collarbone injury coming back. He finished fourth, third, and then he finished fourth at the last run. So he actually rode really good at SMX with that injury. But I have him as a 5 because we expect him to win. That's what I expect from Joe. And now, since we didn't get it, I mean, we have to wait a whole other year to see if he can do it again. So that's why I kind of put him down pretty low. All right, so now we're on to Jordan Smith, and I gave him a 5 out of 10. He finished 3rd in the Supercross West. He finished 9th in motocross, and then 5th at SMX. And to be fair, it could have been like a 5th or 6th for me. He rode exceptionally well in Supercross. He had a win in there. But he did have like a 14th at Seattle, which kind of plagued him for that championship. Maybe he doesn't have a 14th. Maybe he's battling with Levi, with RJ. I think you have to put Jordan Smith as a Supercross championship contender. I don't necessarily say like outdoor championship contender. He did finish 9th. He did race every single round. He just had a couple bad motos in there. Hangtown finished 32nd. Red Buddy finished 38th. He had a couple just mediocre motos in there too. A 17th on here, an 18th at Paula. Like, I don't expect him to like battle for wins in motocross, but I do expect Jordan Smith, being on Star Racing, to be battling for, let's say, like a 4th through a 6th spot. That's what I kind of expect from him. However, for Supercross, I think we're going to have to say maybe a championship contender next year, at least for Supercross. And then for SMX, he honestly did pretty good. He finished 6th at round 1. He finished 6th at round 2. And then he finished 3rd for round 3. And he actually got the podium for round 3, obviously with the 3rd place. But 5 or 6 for me. I want to see how he does on Triumph next year. That's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Jalik did pretty well this year, I think, personally, on the bike. And maybe Jordan's speed, maybe he can get some more podiums. Maybe he can get some wins for that Triumph team, whether he's in the West or the East Coast Supercross. Now, for motocross, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't really know. But that's why I think Jordan's like right there in the middle. Now on to Pierce Brown. I gave Pierce a 6 out of 10. He finished 4th in the Supercross series, a 7th in the motocross series, and 3rd at SMX. And honestly, Pierce rode really good. He did lose out to Cody Schock in Supercross, which probably shouldn't be losing out to Cody Schock, in my opinion. Like, Cody is not a factory rider. Pierce Brown is a factory rider. But he did lose out to Deegan and Tommy V, which is understandable. But Pierce actually rode great in Supercross, man. He rode really consistent. He had 3 consecutive 5ths, 3 consecutive 4ths. But towards the end of the year, he had an 11th, 17th, and 12th. That's not going to, like, cut it, you know, for these, like, Supercross shortened seasons. But in for motocross, he did ride really consistent. He had one horrible moto where he had 39th at Red Bud, but he rode pretty consistent other than that. There's a bunch of 7th place in there, a bunch of 5ths, a 6th. He also had a 38th at Ironman, which is not good, not good at all. But I mean, to be fair, it's awesome to see that Pierce finished the entire season. We see Pierce go down a lot, and I'm really happy that he was healthy enough to finish the entire Supercross season, finish the entire motocross season, and SMX. But now he's going to Star Racing. I expect great things from Pierce Brown next year. I expect him battling for wins in Supercross. I expect him battling for top 5s in motocross, and potentially, maybe, possibly, winning some SMX rounds. Hey, he did it this year. It's a possibility that he's going to be even better next year. So be on the lookout for Pierce Brown. So the next rider that I have is Jalik Swoll, and I also gave him a 6 out of 10. And he finished 7th in the Supercross East Coast. He finished 7th in motocross. And then obviously you guys saw what happened at round 1 of the SMX where he got concussed and he was out for the SMX. But I honestly gave him a 6 because he's on a brand new team. He's on a brand new bike. And he was basically there the entire season. Like, he didn't miss a race until that SMX rounds, right? I mean, he did really good in Supercross. He was in the top 10s. He was battling for top 5s occasionally. He did have a bad moto at Arlington with the last place. But for motocross, man, he was super freaking consistent. In my opinion, with the bike malfunctions that he had. I'm looking at the results right now, and there is a bunch of top 5s. There's a bunch of top 7s. There's also a few motos where that bike did malfunction. He got 36th, 34th. But honestly, that's the bike, and that's not necessarily Jalik. I think Jalik rode amazing all year, especially for the cards that was dealt. New team, new bike malfunctions, everything. I think he rode phenomenal. He was there every single moto, and that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing for me. Now for SMX, obviously he got hurt. Maybe potentially that could have been a 7 if he raced SMX and got like a top 5, which we all know that Jalik is really good at Supercross. I think next year on that Triumph bike, he's going to do even better. Now that they got like fine-tuned from this past year, everything that they're going to learn in this offseason, I think he's going to do extremely well. So be on the lookout for Jalik, but I have him as a 6 for just being consistent and everything that was like thrown at him this year. Okay, so now on to Levi Kitchen. I gave him a 6 out of 10. So in Supercross, he did finish 2nd place. He finished 3rd in motocross, and he finished 6th in the SMX series. For that 2nd place in Supercross, though, I gotta say that Magoo kind of ruined that for him. All right, if you guys remember at Nashville, Magoo and him collided, and they both went down. Magoo did not finish that race, and that's when he officially got hurt. And then Levi did finish, but he got 14th, and he lost the championship by 5 points. Okay, say he doesn't get a 14th there. Say that he gets a top 7, which most likely would have happened, and he probably wins this championship. So you got to play that into consideration a little bit. But technically, he did still lose out. He technically could have still beat RJ at the last round at Salt Lake, but kind of choked a little bit. He got 5th place. That track was pretty hard to pass. I'm not going to front, but you got to take that in consideration. And then for motocross, he was honestly really good all year. He got a bunch of 2nd places, a bunch of 3rd places, but then like Ironman last moto, 35th. He had a bunch of just random motos in there too, where he got like a 10th and a 12. Like Washougal, his hometown race, got a 12th place. Honestly, I hope that he figures it out next year. I hope that he can win that championship in Supercross. Maybe that's a high note for motocross. He comes out swinging and can contend with Deegan, I think, possibly, and hopefully battle him to the end. But I expect better things for Levi, especially motocross season and SMX, but that's why I got him a 6 out of 10. All right, so now we're on to our last 3 riders, and the first one that I have is Julian Bua. I gave him a 7 out of 10. He finished 7th in Supercross, 11th in motocross, and 7th in SMX. Now, you might be saying, Josh, you gave Dax a 2 out of 10, and you gave Julian a 7 out of 10, and they're both rookies. And that is because we expect Dax to do better than Julian. At least for me, I expect Dax. He's on Star Racing, the best 250 bike in the class. I expect him to do way better, way better in motocross than a 17th in like the standings. He should be ahead of Julian, who finished 11th. You know what I mean by that? And then also in Supercross, he finished 9th. Julian finished 7th. Like, these are things to take into consideration. Julian did amazing in Supercross. He rode exceptionally well in the middle part of the season. He had 4 consecutive 7th places. I think he's known for Supercross more than motocross per se, but he didn't do that bad in motocross. He missed 1 round, and that was at Redbud. But I'm looking at the results, man, and from the first race all the way to Redbud, it was top 10s. Legit, it was top 10s every single round. And then at Southwick, second moto Southwick, he got a 40th, which is basically dead last. And kind of got hurt for that round, which led, you guys get the point, Redbud, that's why he was out. But then he came back, and he also got a bunch of top 10s. He got 4th at Budge Creek. I mean, this is the stuff that I'm saying that like Dax should be doing, but Julian's doing, and that's why I have that difference. And then for the SMX, you guys saw it. He got 2nd place at round 1. He had a 5th place at round 2, and then he finished, technically finished pretty bad for round 3, finished 9th, but overall he got 7th. I mean, what can you say, man? This was a great rookie year. This is the year that Dax should have had, and that's why I have that difference. Okay, so now for the last 2 riders, and you guys probably could have guessed it by now, but I have Tommy V, 8 out of 10. He finished 1st in the Supercross East Coast. He finished 2nd in motocross, and he finished 2nd at SMX. And if you guys didn't know this, he beat Hayden Deegan in that Supercross championship by 4 points. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Deegan crashed at the very beginning. He crashed at Detroit at the start. Tommy V finished behind him. He finished 18th. Deegan finished 16th, but Tommy V was just more consistent in Supercross. And Tommy V is not a Supercross guy, in my opinion. I mean, he was on the box at basically the entire season. He was on the box. He finished third but the entire season, Tommy V was on the box, and that's what won him that championship while Deegan struggled in different motos. But then for motocross, it was a little bit different. You guys saw what happened. Hayden Deegan blew the brains out of Tommy V, won by 69 points. Tommy V just had nothing for him, man. Anytime there was like a close battle, Deegan would just blow right past him. Like, it was insane. Tommy V kind of struggled outdoors. Kind of surprised that he even finished second place. He did beat Levi Kitchen, and Levi Kitchen had a pretty bad moto at Ironman, kind of prompted him to get that second place, but we expect more from him. I did give him an 8 out of 10 because he was there the entire season and he got a championship. He was second place. Like, I'd probably give RJ an 8 out of 10 if he was there the entire year and he got second place and he got second at SMX. You know what I mean by that? Got to give it to Tommy V, man. He rode phenomenal in Supercross. He rode great in motocross and SMX. I expect even better things next year. Hopefully they can figure out ways to make that bike better for motocross so he can battle with Deegan, or kind of figure out something what he needs to do for motocross, because I hate to see a championship get blown out like that. You know what I mean? We want to see close racing, so hopefully they can figure it out. The last guy on the list, can you guys like even guess it right now? Yeah, it's Hayden Deegan. I gave him a 9 out of 10. You guys might be saying like, Josh, why didn't you give him a 10 out of 10? He won 2 championships. I gave him a 9 because he should have won that Supercross championship. I know it's just talking about it for Tommy V, but he struggled. Like, his results were not like consistent enough to win that championship, and he still only lost by 4, which is pretty surprising, to be fair. I mean, he had a couple motos in there where it was a 9th and a 6th, and those really hurt him. But I gave him a 9 because he did go out there and destroy everybody in motocross. He destroyed everybody at SMX, and he finished second place in Supercross. So, like, Tommy V went 1-2-2. Hayden Deegan went 2-1-1, and that's why I have Hayden as the best guy. I think everybody can say this as well. I want to give him a 10 if he won that Supercross championship. Of course, it would be a 10 out of 10, but a 9 out of 10 is really, really solid in my opinion. I expect Deegan to go out there and win all 3 championships next year. I think there's going to be a little bit more battling per se, but I expect Deegan to go out there, win the Supercross title, win the motocross title, win the SMX title, and then follow it up that following year and probably go out there and win another Supercross title and then jump to 450s. That's kind of my prediction. I know I went through a lot of riders here. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below if you guys agree or disagree with any of these. I want to hear your guys' takes on any of these riders as well. Expect to see like a video of this like every single week next year. Probably combine it with the likes of 450, so it's just one video. I might be on a little bit of a longer side. Maybe I'll just do like top 10 results from that weekend. But just be on the lookout for that. All right, we'll do a 451 here tomorrow, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for the love, and we'll catch you guys back here in tomorrow's video. I'm out. Peace.